So we are at 13. 13B. Revokes infrastructure projects coming in under budget. Nope, next one up. Councilor Rennie votes conferences. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for council for allowing it to move forward. And to the people here waiting on reports, I guarantee I won't make this long. It'll only be long if my fellow councilors want to drag it out and make it long. And the reality is that I want to talk to council about the expenditures and the money we're spending for attending conferences. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, to be quite frank with you. As you've seen tonight, you had the Ravens come before us asking for money. We're constantly being asked for money. And if you look back on the figures from 12 and 13, this council, not this council as a whole, and I'll speak for myself, I haven't spent zero on mileage or conferences or per diems, zero. But this council has spent almost $90,000 on conferences, per diems, and expenses in a 18-month period. So if somebody thinks that presentation we just looked at is worth $90,000, then all the power to you. Personally, as a councillor who represents people inside this municipality, I don't understand the opportunity of it. I don't understand. And it's very ironic that tonight, when it's in council discussions about money being spent on conferences to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars, a presentation was done. Isn't that ironic? And for the last 3.5 years, this guy has never seen a presentation on any conference. So the word on the floor may have been, it's going to be challenged. So you better get up there and do a presentation, in which he did. So with that being said, I still don't understand, and I still don't weigh the value of $90,000 for that. Here's why I get irritated. I see Mr. Cassidy up there trying to stop vandalism on the skate park. I've raised the vandalism on the skate park. In all due respect to you, Dave, I can't talk about it no more. And the reason I can't talk about it no more, because it takes money. If I had that $90,000, I'm making a point. I'm asking you not to object. It's not fair. I didn't object on anybody here. If somebody doesn't like what I'm saying, respectfully get up and walk out like I did. I'm okay with that. But all I'm saying is that the BIA, businesses downtown Essex are losing their shirts. They're losing their homes, they're losing their shirts, and they're losing their businesses, and they're coming to council and asking help, and that lady right there, working with this council, can't make that provision for them. The BIA just contributed $2,000 to us. You want to know what for? Because the plan that Jeff Watson and Heather and our planning department is working so hard on trying to revitalize the downtown, want to know what happened? Fell $2,000 short. We had no money for it. So what did we do? The BIA lent us the money. Why? So we could keep the businesses going. So if anybody thinks the conferences are good and healthy and extracting whatever it is you're extracting them, all the power to you. You go into your little world and keep thinking that. I know the reality and I know the difference. You give me $90,000, I'm going to make a lot of the problems go away. So I'm asking council, and I'm going to ask Donna to work with her team to put a policy in place that caps the expenditures on attending conferences and council approval prior to attending, just like everything else. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And I will just add that that's what's needed here. Groundwork. We have no policy, and that's exactly what's required here. Now, Councillor Baker we were all requested to make a presentation upon going to these conferences. It was long before you decided to have this talk. Councillor Vokes, I never interrupted you. No one did. Please, sir. Council requested that anyone going to the conferences should come back with information as to what happened. And that's exactly what Councillor Baker's doing. He picked tonight, and we would have dealt with your issue previous meeting, but you had to put off to this week. So maybe you were the guy that wanted to have it. same as Bill. I don't know that. Councillor Scott is later on this month or the first part of next month for a couple of conferences he went to. So they've been asked, we've been asked to fill the rest of us in as to what happened at the conferences and or the public. And that's all these gentlemen are doing. So, sir, I know where you stand on this issue. One question to you would be, and I've been a union man all my life, do unions...
Leave the union out of it. I'm asking you right now.
I'm asking you a question, sir. I have the floor, sir.
You have the floor, but it has no
Yes,
affiliation
I
to
do.
any union. It has none.
Councillor Folks,
It has, don't mention the union.
can I speak without being interrupted, please?
As long as you don't talk about a union, yes, you can.
I have a question of you. You brought up the
I don't-
issue of conferences. Do the union send people to learn things at conferences, or don't they?
I'm going to tell you once more, Your Worship. The fact of how the union runs their business as a union is how Unifor runs their business. It's not for
That's
us or
right.
me to challenge.
And we
my
do
only
the
concern
same thing,
is my
sir.
only. No, you're not going to
Okay,
do that.
you're done talking. Stop,
No, and I
please.
hope you're done talking too,
Please.
because it has no affiliation to what we're talking about here tonight. None. Zero. It's like asking.
Am I the only guy
It's like
that
asking
doesn't
Richard
get
about
what's going
Hiram
on
Walkers, or asking Morty about putting them
Anyone
in
else
Bowes wherever
wanna
he worked
support me?
before he retired.
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Worship. I just want to make a comment here. I was shocked when you said $90,000. When Councillor Vokes said $90,000, I'm thinking, I know that we haven't had conferences. Council hasn't had conferences worth $90,000 in the last 2 years. The $90,000 includes all the staff. Also includes certifications. Also includes diplomas that we've given that are. It does. I'm not arguing with you, Randy. I'm reading it right in front of me here. It also includes degrees. It includes subject-specific training for staff. It includes management development. Donna, help me. Is that true or not?
Through you, Your Worship, the one that you see before you for 2012, that's a Section 8 284 report. There's two of them. There's one for 2012 and one for 2013 to date. That is strictly council. But that doesn't just include conferences. It includes per diem, council remuneration, mileage, everything. So this is not just strictly conferences for council.
And it
okay?
does come to 90,000?
The total I have for 2013 to date is 31,000.
Okay.
Whether, I don't know if
Okay.
Councillor Vokes added
Okay.
just the conferences.
Sorry, I'll take
That's
that
okay.
back. I take that back. So it does. But what I do want to say is, that conferences are very much worthwhile. And a lot of times I go to these conferences, there's a lot of ideas that I have gained from the different conferences that I've been to, that we've come back. And as a matter of fact, ex-councillor Bill Caxero is in the audience, and him and I went to an AMO conference going back to the first term that we were on council together. We came back with an idea. It was called Communities in Bloom. And we thought, wow, what a fantastic idea that we can bring back to our community. And it did exactly what we thought it would do. It brought 4 wards together. And we had a lot of issues at that time where each ward didn't see what benefit the other one was throwing into the pot. And I think by making us all have a common goal through this Communities in Bloom, and we knew that that would help enhance building teamwork in our community, and it's done exactly what him and I thought it would do. If we had not gone to that AMO conference, we would have never had known about Communities in Bloom. We would have never pushed for this idea to happen. But some of the best ideas that I've had as a councillor, I believe, have come from some of the conference materials that I've been able to have at my availability because I've attended these conferences. It's something that's used as a learning tool, and as long as you're using it for what it's there intended to be for, I've got to say that I believe that conferences are very much worth the money that we put into them. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councillor Baker and then Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, Your Worship. So just maybe I'm going to submit this because I've done an analysis of all the conferences that we went to this year. including mileage, is rolled up and everything. And while it's easy to throw out a number of $90,000, you have to really look at what was provided in that. And that was a report that came to us today. It wasn't a report that was based on the first analysis that was 2 weeks ago when the council wanted it. It was added in now, and that added in remunerations, that adds in all our different committees, that's mileage. So that's a different report than was presented before. So to date, when you look at it, I've even included, with all due respect, I've even included the mayor and deputy mayor in this report, because your remuneration or your registration comes from the county council on that. But we all pretty equal, other than, of course, Councillor Vokes chooses not to, and Councillor Bondi does a lot of her work here. So that understands. But we definitely worked hard, and I justify everything I've done, and I actually record everything I do in terms of the mileage into 3 different categories, in terms of what I do for council here, what I do for council work, and what I do for residents, and everything is tracked by mileage, and it's itemized. So by all means, this just indicates how hard I actually do work, over and above my regular work. So if anybody wants to look at it, by all means, you can see the value that you get when you have as a representation. So, when you look at the numbers, look at the real numbers, not just throw a number in the sky and use that for, grandstanding and trying to present the fact that we're not doing a good job. If you choose not to do anything, that's okay. I wouldn't wear that as a badge of honor, however, but that's fine. So I'll submit these for the record tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman and Councillor Vokes.
Just a few comments to make. Two of the major organizations we belong to are FCM and AMO, which are our provincial bodies and the federal bodies that speak on our behalf in the various governments. And we get millions of dollars back through our association with those organizations, because in the province, AMO is one of the, I'll use a word, channeling mechanisms that we get monies from. The other thing is, these are organizations that we depend on to speak for us, and it's important that we support them at these conferences and put our points forward when it's required, either through motions that we send to them from council or directly from the floor. The other thing is that it is one of the AMO is one of the very few spots we can actually meet your various ministers and or provincial elected people and be able to speak to them on a person-to-person basis. Those contacts that you make over the years are very valuable, that you can contact that individual, they know who they're talking to, and especially from a staff point, it's important as well. So I think it's important that at certain points that we have our staff people there as well, and especially if you're actually meeting with a minister and the government parties at the same time in the various meeting rooms, because those are the areas where you can make your point at the strongest point, and you can actually get some feedback immediately from that. Conferences are always a sort of a intangible type thing that you can't really put your finger on and say this is what happened from it. Sometimes you can, but as Richard alluded to, that was the Communities in Bloom is one thing that it's popped up and is very obvious. And I guess really when you go to a conference, you get out of what you really put into it, or are able to go to the various programs that are put on, and the interaction you have with the speakers there, and the information you get back. And that's what you get out of it. It's you can go to the conference and do nothing and get nothing out of it, and as some people say, you had a vacation. Well, if you go to these conferences and are doing the things, you don't see the city that you're in. You're at that conference. And over the years, I've tried to work vacation around the various conferences, so I was able to look at the city when I was there and see what they did. And it gives you a unique opportunity to look at other communities, especially on the tours that they offer in their off-peak time, especially at FCM, that you can see what those communities are doing in an entirely different way than you would if you were there as a tourist. You see how they handle the infrastructure and do different things. Just an example, in Saskatoon, we were out there a year ago. One of their ways of handling rainwater is in their parks. They have these huge tubes under the ground. They're covered over in their parks. It worked in their area. They have, something that they could do. So, and we see that here now, that some of the subdivisions that are going up, they oversize the sewers so they can handle more stormwater in a rush. It only works for a small portion, because if you have huge rainstorms that we've had the last few years, it sort of doesn't work. But those are just little things that you see as you go around. In Hamilton a few years ago, I should back up a bit. We were having issues here with our gators around town, the police stopping them, not allowing on the streets. They were considered as, I forget what the designation was, but they wouldn't let it. At one of the conferences in Hamilton, we're going down this street, and there's this mammoth machine carrying a roll of steel. On the back of it, it's got that little orange sticker saying slow-moving vehicle. And I asked them there, how are they getting away with this? So when I came back, I spoke to admin and the police, and a couple days later, our gator was going up and down the street. So just, little things like that you see, and it may not have something to do with the conference itself, but those are the type of things that you pick up as you go around. The areas where the trade shows are, new ideas are coming out all the time. So a conference is what you want to get out of it. And if you go there with the idea that you're not going to get anything, or you really don't want to do the things that you should be doing, it's a total waste of money. But if you go with the intent of doing what you should be doing, they're very, very useful tools. And hopefully we can continue to do that.
Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Your Worship. If it's the position of Councillor Baker that I'm grandstanding to save my community money, I want to go on record and say, yeah, I'm grandstanding, because what I want to do is save my community some money. I obviously might be going a little too fast here. I think I am, because maybe it's my frustration, I'm going too fast. Because if council heard me during my start of my council discussions, I made it very clear that when it comes to conferences, I'm not suggesting we stop conferences, period, and I'm not retracting. I looked at that lady right there in her administration and said, I'm asking that council supports that a policy be put together that limits the amount of conferences and the money being spent going to conferences. So for some reason, this council thinks I'm against conferences. The vast majority I'm against, probably 90%. But when I look at Heather and I look at Jeff, when they go for planning department conferences, if you're asked Randy Vokes, do you support those conferences? I do support those conferences. Some of the conferences I don't support. Limiting the amount of money going to conferences, I support. I just got a question, council, though. I'd like to see a show of hands. If you had to pay for these conferences out of your own pocket to attend, would you spend, some of you which have spent $10,000 and $12,000? Let's see you put your hand up. I know you will. So put your hand up and say, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket.
I would hope no one would put their hands up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
You should be done.
Hey, thank you, sir. Councillor Scott, then Councillor Bondy.
Through you, Your Worship. I got a lot to say on this. I don't know how much I want to say, but I'll answer some of the comments that my colleague said here. I think one of the things, Randy, that you asked for is council votes on who goes to council, to conferences. You did say that.
I didn't say vote.
You said council decides what conferences. I will never let you decide what conference I go to for someone that doesn't go to a conference. I'm speaking now.
Okay.
Please respect that. I didn't talk through you.
That's true.
Thank you. I'm the highest expensed counselor in this sitting council. I have no problem with that. I've heard one complaint about that, but when you break it down into what they are, well, mileage is one thing. Bill and I live the farthest away. Randy, you live a kilometer away and don't go to anything. So your mileage is probably going to be less. That's no, to anything, Randy, our mileage. If you look at our mileage, it's based on from our home to events, to meetings.
Add that in, John.
I'm just saying that's public information that was requested, and I'm speaking to it, because that's added to my enumeration, is it not? My mileage on it. Thank you, Donna. So that's added into that 10. It is. It's not? That's added in there. So you're speaking to that. We go to more conferences than you, so naturally we're going to have a higher amount that go. I came from one today. My son was asked to speak at one in Toronto, and I had to pay my way. My son's was paid for by the organization. So your answer would be, I would pay for some of these, and I have in the past. Some of the events I've gone to, I've paid for my airfare. I've paid for other expenses if I see value in it. The time to discuss this, if we want to discuss this logically and reasonably, is at budget time. We say, this is how much we have. Every single council event that I've gone to is public. It's public information. Administration knows, and that's who we get permission from operationally when we go. I will never have Randy Vokes tell me what conferences I can go to, ever. Because you choose to not see value in it for whatever reason. Maybe you should go. And you wear that like a badge of honor, and frankly, that's embarrassing. I don't know why you do that, Randy. But that's as far as I want to go. I have no problem with what it is. I get value, and I will report back. And I reported back, and I said this, I think, earlier in the summer, that I would report on it. So it was a matter of coincidence that we're reporting now. Bill chose this night over another night. You were the one that withdrew your conference discussion last council meeting, or we would have talked about it then. I have absolutely no problem with this. I have no problem with defending it. I also keep an organized log of everywhere I go and what I do. In fact, tonight, I'm here. I missed work tonight. Cost me $300 to come here tonight. But that's part of the deal. I don't make any money being on council. I lose money, and I can show that to you too if anyone wants to see that. So if anyone's bitching and complaining about conferences, specifically, they can come talk to me.
Sure, Councilor Bondi?
Thank you. It's apparent that the major problem tonight is communication and sharing of information. We've been sitting here for 3 years, and thank you for your presentation. And John, I honestly, truly look forward to seeing your presentation, because I know you're out there doing a lot for our town in cycling. I'm not against conferences either, but we have to set limits. And I've questioned with administration why we haven't had limits before, and the answer that I've received is that we've never needed them, because we've never had a council like this. So, and maybe we can't even set limits for this council. Maybe we need to set limits for the next term of council, because for some reason it's hard to set limits on yourself. But I support conferences and everything that we learn from them. It's interesting that some other municipalities have limits and we don't. I'd like to see the sharing of information, because unfortunately my life is so busy I can't go. But I'm here on the ground running. Like you said, Councillor Baker, like I do a lot of work here. I do a lot of work here. And I can tell the work that you're doing in other places, and I can tell the work that John's doing, and I can tell the work that Randy's doing too, because we all shine in different areas. And communication amongst ourselves is not one of those areas, unfortunately. Everyone has their own moral compass. And what we need to define is, where are we going for personal enrichment, family enrichment, or town enrichment? And if we can hit all three with one stone, that's awesome. But my moral compass, I'd like to see a mileage policy as well, because if you look at the mileage claims from some of us, there's a lot of discrepancies. And I too live further south, like Councillor Baker and Councillor Scott. But the mileage claims for all of council is very different. And you would think it would correlate to how many committees they're on or how many times the committees meet, but it doesn't seem so. I go volunteer at John R. Park Homestead as part of my council association there. Do I claim the mileage? No. But would somebody else on council claim the mileage? Well, that's part of that moral compass that we need to define. I'd like to see it written, and I know that senior administration and our CAO are working on that, because we've realized that it's a problem. The timeline that I've had for this is, residents brought this up. One resident in particular that's not here tonight brought this up as a concern, and Randy agreed that it was a concern, and I agreed that it was a concern, because there is no accounting measure on this. Tecumseh is the highest paid council. But if you add $4,000 or $5,000 onto our council members, we have the highest paid council. So if you really start crunching numbers, you'll see that, some of us have huge claims, and I'm not against it either, but it needs to be justifiable, it needs to be accountable, and I'm not saying we're not transparent, because anybody can see this. You can go on your agenda and see it, but we need to set limits and to do more sharing and maybe more carpooling. Maybe administration can come up with ideas where we use a town vehicle for conferences. Maybe that would save us in the mileage. I don't know. I think we need to think out of the box. I myself would like to go to a conference one day, and maybe I would go in November, and then by that time they would say, Sherry, the budget's all gone. So I don't know. I too, of course, want to go one day. It just hasn't happened with my diabetic dog. But I'd love to take my daughter to Calgary and learn more about the Calgary model of animal welfare and bring that all back for you. I'd love to do that. Just haven't got there yet. We're not all so lucky. And it's a good discussion, and I look forward to the report coming back from administration so we can discuss it. I would like to make sure that there is a mileage component in there, and not against conferences, but we just need to be accountable. And I think we're on that fence there where it's too high for my comfort level. Doesn't mean if we had set budgets, if each council member had $5,000 and another council member wanted to go to a conference, and they came to me and said, or we pooled our money and said, Sherry, would you throw this money back in the pot? Of course, somebody go. But at least we have a track record. At least we have some measures in place. And I know we're already working on that. So that's it.
Okay, just comment, a couple comments. Sherry said administration's working on this presently already?
Yes.
Under whose direction? Ours already?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Councillor Baker. And Councillor Bowman, I'll limit you about a minute apiece, then we'll end up with Councillor Votes.
I don't need too long. By all means, I've never said that we do not need a policy. None of us have overspent what we do have a policy. We have a limit on each conference that we go to, on a limit, a ceiling of expenditure. We all stay within that. So that's number one. So by all means, you guys, we can come down to zero or come down to a number. We'll abide by whatever. Zero gets you pay for peanuts, you get peanuts, you get monkeys. So, and the other thing is too, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So when you talk about luck, and we spend all our time here spending and talking about this when we're all within line, but yet we don't spend any time like we did last week when we're bringing a $12 million business and 65 jobs to this community because of the hard work we do, because we're lobbying, and we saved it from going to Windsor, but yet we got all this time to talk about this. So, that's the kind of thing that we should look at as a council to work together. Start working together and stop grandstanding and telling people we're not working. We're working hard, and we can identify every single thing we do.
Mr. Bowman.
Just to point out some of the boards. Just to comment, some of the boards that people sit on, there's a requirement in that to attend certain conferences and training sessions. Police board is one, the water board is another. I'm not sure, committee of adjustment. And some of it, it's a requirement of those boards. And I might point out with the new regulations in our water, council is the owner of our local water system, will eventually have to take that course to be, it's a requirement of the province now under the new legislation that come down after Walkerton. So those are the type of things that are still out there that has to be dealt with outside of the council conferences.
Councillor Vokes, you have the final discussion period.
I'm just going to ask that that administration look at a policy, refine it, and get it back to council. A lot of defense for people who aren't guilty.
Yep, they're working on that, sir. Okay. Thank you. Motion received. The report, Deputy Mayor Malash, Councillor Bowman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion. the verbal discussion.
Just a point of order, if I can. We had council discussion. We got something at 4 o'clock tonight. If that's a report, I'm not accepting it.
Through your worship, there were 3 reports that were attached with the agenda package that went out on Thursday, or Friday.
That was the council discussion?
Yes, it was. That was included. There were 3 that were
Yeah, I
included
got that
with the
from last
package.
time.
Yes.
The one we got today was additional one, right?
There was only one additional one today. The ones we're receiving through this motion are the ones that were on the agenda package.
Okay, so that's a report then. It's not council discussion. So
It was-
we're approving a report then, are we?
You're just receiving them.
Receiving, okay.
Okay. Motion carries. Now we're going back. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I'd like to ask if we can move up, Mr. Warden. We're at County Council chambers here, sorry. Your Worship, I'd ask that we move up item F under reports from administration, 2013-27.
All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, F, Planning, Report Number 2013-27, Proposed Heritage Designation, 1215 Isla Road, former Township of Colchester, South Ward 3, and 78 Fox Street, former Town Essex, Ward 1. It is recommended that by the Town of Essex Municipal Heritage Committee that the property is known municipally as 1215 Isla Road, former Township of Colchester, South Ward 3, and 78 Fox Street, former Town of Essex, Ward 1, be considered for heritage designation by council. In order to initiate this process, it is hereby requested that council authorize that the notice of intention to designate for each property be advertised in the local newspapers and sent to the property owners in the Ontario Heritage Trust in order to gather public input on the proposed designations. It is noted that these designations have been initiated by the current property owners. So what we need is a recommendation, or move the recommendation. So move. Councilor Bowman, Councilor Bondi. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Malash.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I see Linda Eiler, our Chair of the Municipal Heritage Committee, in the audience here. I'm just wanted to ask her maybe if she wanted to give us any additional information than what's on the report.
Okay, move that Linda Eiler be allowed to speak to us, supported by Councilor Bowman. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Let she speak. Oh, there it is. Sorry, Linda. Deputy Mayor Malash, we already have a motion on the floor, so we
Okay.
can't do that. The clerk just advised me.
Okay, so I can ask her specific questions, though? I'm allowed to ask her questions.
Okay.
Okay. Linda, the report says that the owners are in concurrence with moving forward on this?
Yes, they are, sir.
Okay. And as far as the province is concerned, I'm just wondering, what are the restrictions or what are the conditions that these people are signing off to?
Basically, the way the Heritage Act runs now, there isn't the restrictions that used to be under the old LAC Act. Basically, with the Wirrig home, that the family is here tonight at 1215 Isla Road. That one there basically is under heritage designation Basically, because it was part of the original Eiler settlement property, there is proof of the photos that I've added into the document that you've got in front of you. I believe Heather put the photos in where you can actually still see the original logs and the original flagstones, so that you know that it is from, our own community. Like, this is something that was built roughly about the 1850s. We haven't found all the documentation for the actual home going back further than that, but there you can see right there that that is inside the attic of the upper level. There is also a photo of the flagstone, and the lower part of that slide that you're showing right there now is actually from the outside structure of the house. When they got hit by the tornado a couple of years ago, they ended up that they had to take the siding off. Then they found out that there was insul brick there. Underneath that was actual clapboards, and then underneath that was the actual logs. So this home definitely, I was out there, I took the photos. We had quite a few of the members from the Heritage Committee go out to actually view this home. And it is, in our estimations, that it does fall under heritage designation.
Thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Linda. So we have a lot of historic areas, or homes in this area, and thank you for the owners to step forward on this. What's the benefits of doing this for a resident or for our community by designating? What establishes this certification?
I wish for our area I could say that it is a financial benefit. We are not at that stage yet. We haven't been asking for this for long enough. Our committee is not that old. Other communities will offer tax reductions, that sort of thing. Our area for right now, no, that's not the case. It is prestige. It is knowing that this family knows the significance of this home. They want to make sure that they are preserving this home. Once they go on the registry list, then this home will be flagged eventually with the building department, different with the fire department, so that if anything happens to this home, somebody comes in with a demolition permit, say the Weirigs don't own it anymore, somebody else takes over, somebody buys the property, they want to put in a demolition permit, a flag goes up. So it sort of helps us eventually to make sure that this piece of property is now preserved.
Okay, so we're working towards further designations so that we can provide benefits, but we don't have any benefits for it yet. Then is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Is the committee working towards that? I'm trying to get to that.
If we could convince council to, do something like that so that there was, a tax benefit down the road.
For improvements or upgrades, restoration of these particular properties, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
I'll ask the question. All in favor? Motion carries. There are now back to number 8. Chief Administrative Officer Report number 2013-009, update number 2 on insurance claims 4947 Talbot Street North. Recommendation is recommended that council receive the enclosed report. Correspondence from the Cooperative General Insurance Company, final proof of loss of at 47 Talbot Street North. Need a motion to receive the report. Councilor Vogt, Councilor Bondi, any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carried. Being a bylaw to prescribe standards for the maintenance of nuisance weeds and tall grasses on private lands. This motion would be passed first, second, third reading this evening.
I have a question.
Councilor Bondi moves.
Yeah, I guess you get a motion on first, and then I'll have
Yep.
questions.
Councilor Bondi moves, supported by Councilor
Seconded
Baker.
for discussion.
Councilor Baker?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions on it. We're going to third reading tonight. I guess I have a couple of questions. One, in terms of this provision, through your worship to Chris, in this provision, have we taken consideration agriculture in this in terms of noxious weeds and things of that nature? I mean, how are we going to address that in the farming community in some areas? I mean, we have some open areas, and I notice you've got some areas that are exempt here. The town of Essex properties are exempt, school boards are exempt, government authorities are exempt, and so are utility corporations, so are ELK. So any of those properties don't fall under this bylaw. So I just wondering, how do we deal with these weed in other areas, in agriculture areas along the lake too? Because I know there's a lot of that out there. Do we have a way to enforce that?
Through your worship, the enforcement would be the same. Yes.
Yep.
I mean, the intent of the bylaw is to get away from the property standards process. So that law, as far as 8-inch and noxious weeds, is already present.
Yep.
Within the property standards process, though, it takes too long. We get complaints constantly, and we can't act on them because of the process. So this bylaw will act similar to the snow removal bylaw.
Okay.
The advertisement would be in the paper in the spring, and it would allow us to act. It adds depth to our toolbox, and we can act on that in a quicker manner than the property standards process. So it would touch on those properties as well.
So I guess I'm asking because I'm knowing how we have a rampant of mustard, the garlic mustard, the garlic seed that's happening on there. It's a noxious weed and it kills everything else. But it's rampant. How do we control that? It's a lot of open properties. It's along the bank where IRCA. Do we have a program in order to get rid of that? So we're going to now, I guess with this bylaw, is this going to help remove all this stuff? We couldn't do it before. Can you go to every property owner and say you have to remove, if it's a large open area, that you have to remove all the garlic mustard?
Through your worship, the intent would be to take care of those nuisance weeds. Yes, those noxious weeds shouldn't be there today.
They what?
They shouldn't be there today, those noxious weeds.
I know, but there's a program to try to get rid of them. They're exponential, they're rapid, and they're killing all the other stuff. It just, unless we have a program, it's not somebody individually, it's in all the open fields. I'm just wondering, will we be able to just say to a farmer, go do that, or else we're going to charge you for it? I'm not sure how we do this.
Yeah, I'm not clear on on your question
Right.
exactly.
In an open farming field where there's noxious weeds, somebody can call up and say, we want that 4 acres of all these weeds removed. We're going in this vacant lot, we're going to go in and do it ourselves and charge the property owners, if they're large properties?
That would be the intent, yeah.
Okay. Okay, because it's out there now, I guess you're saying we don't have no ability to do it. This bylaw will take care of that?
This bylaw will allow us to do that. The Property Standards Bylaw and the Noxious Weed Act also allows us to do that now as well. So the intent of this bylaw is to take care of those nuisance weeds and noxious weeds
So-
issues.
But predominantly in the urban sectors, though, I guess?
Predominantly.
Yeah.
I would assume that would be the predominant use of this bylaw, yeah.
Okay, so now, how does it get predicated? Can somebody just call and saying, my neighbor's has grass higher than 8 inches, and
Yeah, through your worship, that's how it would be, similar to the sidewalks and the snow removal. If there's an issue that's out there that would be identified, and this would allow the bylaw officers to act on that issue.
that person doesn't have to be identified when they call in?
Through your worship, none of the people that call in for complaints have to be identified within the town of Essex for any complaint, not just weeds.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. D, Human Resources Report Number 2013-002, results and recommendation for the request for proposal for professional consulting service for non-union salary administration program pay equity review. The recommendation is that report number Human Resources 2013-002 be accepted and that council award McDowell Associates as a professional consulting firm for the non-union salary administration program pay equity review. Councilor Baker, supported by Deputy Mayor Meloche. Any questions? In favor of the motion? Motion carries. E, Planning Report Number 2013-34, Rezoning Application, 1552906 Ontario Limited, Remo Valenti, agent, part of the Chicana subdivision, south of Hanlon Street, west of Fairview Avenue. The recommendation is that the rezoning application of said Ontario Limited and Remo Valenti agent for changes to the R2.2 regulations applicable to the Chicana subdivision located south of Hanlon Street, west of Fairview Avenue, to permit reductions in the required front yard depth and exterior side yard width for specific lots be approved on the following basis. Permit a front yard depth of 6 meters, 20 feet for lots 15 to 19, 29 to 43, and 58 to 76 on streets B and C shown on the draft plan of subdivision attached as Appendix A to the report of the Planning Department dated October the 7th, 2013. And also permit an exterior side yard width of 3 meters, which is 10 feet for lots 69, 70, and 76 on street C shown on the draft plan of subdivision attached as Appendix B to the report of the Planning Department dated October 7th, 2013. Council vote. Well, I think we could just go right to the approve it because it's recommended that we do accept these changes, so unless you need a question. Yeah? Okay. Moved by Councilor Vokes, supported by Councilor Scott. Any question? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Mr. Valenti, would you like to make any comments, sir? It's not done. That's what I tried to do, is just get them to say yes, but if you want to make a couple comments, you're allowed.
I read the report. I'm in favor of the report. I recommendation.
Sir, before you leave, push your button, shut it off, and we're away. Any further discussion? Okay. Okay. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. So this question is to Heather. I think you wrote the report, probably. Oh, Jeff, okay. Okay, question to Mr. Watson. So ultimately, what was the goal here by moving forward on these changes?
Basically, what we were looking at is trying to get more variety in housing types. Some of the things that he requested, like the reduction in the front yard, has already been granted for 3 major subdivisions in the town. So we're not really doing anything precedent-setting in terms of front yard depths. The side yards, there was disagreement with the original application as to how far a side yard should be reduced, and we're talking about exterior lots on corner, or exterior side yards on corner lots. And the original request was to reduce them from 15 feet down to as much as 4 feet. And we said, no, we would not support that. So basically, the recommendations you have before you are basically a compromise worked out with Mr. Valente, and he has agreed to that.
Further?
Supplementary?
So, Mr. Watson, and these lots, so the size of the lots are not changing. It's just the distance from the side yards and the distance from the front yard. And can you remind me of the size of these lots, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the basic problem was that when the subdivision plan was conceived and approved and put into a draft plan approval, the lots that we're talking about are 100 feet deep, which is really rather small for a normal residential lot. And what that means, though, is that when you have a 25-foot front yard and a 25-foot backyard and so on, you're really restricting the flexibility in house design. And since, as I say, the Woodview Estates and the Mathis and the Essex Crossing subdivisions were granted a 20-foot front yard as opposed to 25, that extra 5 feet does provide additional flexibility in house design and doesn't, as I say, set any precedent about to what council has granted in the past. So the standards basically are not far from what has been granted previously by council.
I don't necessarily agree that because we've done it in one instance that we should be doing it in another instance. What maybe you're doing in one area because you allow multiple condominiums in one subdivision, or if you did a whole subdivision of condominiums, doesn't mean all of the homes in the town of Essex should be condominiums. Because we allowed something to happen in one occasion doesn't necessarily mean that we're not setting precedent when we do it for one, correct?
That's correct. If I can continue, I think what the problem is that when we look at applications that come in, and I went to great length about community values and community standards when the Essex Crossing subdivision came to council. Remember, the request was for numerous variances to the zoning bylaw. And our position was, rather than talk about numbers, we want to talk about community values and as I say, community standards across the board. And if we felt that what requested would violate what we see as local community values, we would advise council accordingly. And that's why so much was devoted to the question of, for example, snout houses in Essex Crossing subdivision. The proposal in front of you today, had it gone as proposed, the Chicana rezoning application as they applied, we would have said to council, it's too much. But this is more a concession to builders to give them the flexibility that they want, but without taking away what at least planning considers to be the community values for the town of Essex.
Thank you. I trust your judgment, and you've hit it right on the head. You said what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Sir, Councilor Bowman.
Again, I will support the recommendation. The only thing I want to caution, I don't want to see us always going to the minimums on all our subdivisions, because I don't know, it looks like the Toronto syndrome where you got house on top of house, and that's not our community. Our community is more the open spaces type atmosphere. And I understand that's often a conflict with developers and how they perceive development should go. So I think it has to be a compromise over the period of time. So I think concessions here and there, but I don't want it to become the norm, because when you give a concession in one spot, you certainly don't want that to be norm for the next subdivision that shows up. So I think each subdivision should have a variety of types of homes in it, so it's not the cookie cutter approach, and you have basically lots of varying sizes, so you have a mixture. So just a comment.
Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I just wanted to also comment on the council's points respecting the minimum or maintaining minimum standards or maintaining the standards that are set. The short tenure that I've had here with the community, I certainly respect Mr. Watson and Mr. Walensky in terms of their understanding of the planning policy and the policies that council's put in front of your administration. I think in Jeff's case, no one understands better the value of community context than he, and I think that those were the things that we were very cognizant of when the administration was negotiating with the developer. And in this case, I think Mr. Valenti has indicated he's satisfied, and certainly administration was satisfied. It did take some compromise, but we came away with the sense that this was something that was doable in the community, and I think it meets the minimums that we would ever recommend to.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries.